Point and Click Productions presents Coronavirus, a Psychologist's Daily Journal, or for short, Psychologist's Diary. Something like that. Anyhow, I think I'm probably looking more like an off-duty rabbi than a psychologist, but I have taken to wearing these lovely Bukharian yarmulkes these days for various reasons, including my male pattern baldness. And I have been off YouTube for a while, as you all know, and the past few years actually I've only been on once or twice a year. However, I have been thinking deeply about the current situation with the coronavirus, and as many of us have. And I decided that what I'm going to do, other than adjust the camera and make you feel seasick for a minute, is I'm going to create a series of videos, hopefully daily, for a little while, unspecified amount of time, and I'm just going to share with you some of my experiences and my views of the current situation from the perspective of a licensed psychologist here in Oregon. How long have I been a licensed psychologist in Oregon? About 15 years, and a mental health worker of the past, oh boy, 25 years. So, where to even start? I am going to start with the very personal because that seems like the right thing to do. So in February, my father passed away, which was unexpected, was not coronavirus related insofar as we could tell, was rather sudden, but he was going to be 90 in June, and it was peaceful, and he had a wonderful life, and no need for condolences. But I'm just presenting that as a little bit of the background of how my family is experiencing the current crisis. There's also another background of a couple of different family members in the past have passed away untimely due to upper respiratory infection and complications thereof. So it's very, very personal for my family. And yet, for all that, from the beginning here, one thing I will note is quite self-consciously, with a little bit of trepidation admitting this, because it's a somewhat dangerous thing for a semi-public figure. I don't think I'm a public figure, but for someone to admit publicly this is a little bit risky. I'm kind of enjoying this period of time. It came very well timed for me as a break that I really, really wanted. That said, that's an incredibly selfish perspective, and people are really suffering, and they're going to suffer more, and more people are going to suffer. So that odd balance, I having spoken with people online, not so much through YouTube, but through Facebook and such. I've been a Facebook regular for, I don't know, well over a decade, maybe closer to 15 years, close to the beginning of Facebook. I know that I'm not the only one that feels this way. Mixture of fear, just plain old fear, looking at the numbers, looking at that exponential growth curve going up, 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 and the slope just keeps getting higher. So that's scary. And then looking at the numbers, I'm a type 2 diabetic. So, ooh, I'm at higher risk, but I'm pretty healthy. But nonetheless, if you're over 80, 20% fatality rate. My mom's almost 88. So, boy, what a mixture. I mean, if I can observe just one thing, not two things, but one thing, it's an overwhelming mixture of emotions if I actually look at it, which looking at myself or looking at the green dot that is your point of view, literally, from my camera's perspective, it's difficult to organize my thoughts. And what I would reflect then as a therapist is perhaps that is true of a lot of people. Perhaps this is such a flood of different emotions, and obviously different combinations of different emotions for different people in different situations. All of that is perhaps so obvious as to risk triviality. I don't wish to trivialize that. There are people, I have close friends in Manhattan that I need to check in with. The situation in New York City is very frightening. I'm selfishly glad that I and my family no longer live there, haven't for a long time. The situation here in Oregon is much less frightening to me, but that could change. What to do with this big brew, this mixture of so many different emotions from a totally selfish, my speaking for myself, from a totally selfish sense of, oh, finally, just nothing. And having bewailed and bemoaned that all my hobbies are indoors these days, sitting down, gemstone cutting, Dungeons and Dragons with my kids, or one of my kids and his friends sometimes, and this kind of thing, internet stuff, and the list of sitting down doing nothing hobbies seems to keep increasing. One of the things I did recently, taking advantage of the situation, is start seriously exercising again. I fired, or at least temporarily for the time being, let go of my doctors at our big famous medical institution here in favor of a naturopath who is very evidence-based, so more of a middle path instead of straight up medical for my own issues. And with that, I have dramatically increased my exercise, specifically walking, because that's one of the few things that we're allowed to do now. And we had some wonderful weather here for a while. I don't know how it's been across the country. I haven't checked the weather across the country, but here in Oregon we had a lovely stretch, and now it's kind of overcast, but not too bad. So this is to validate people's likely sense of overwhelm. There's nothing, maybe nothing is a little too strong, but there are a few things, let's say, more overwhelming in the average person's everyday life than a barrage of strong emotions, some of which contradict each other. Strong emotions, feelings, thoughts, scenarios, intense, highly fused. If you've been following, or if you in the past have studied acceptance and commitment therapy and the kinds of psychology that I talk about here, we're very fused with these stories. None of them are true yet by definition. You know, the future things that we're projecting, the stories that we're telling ourselves that are either scary or good. This morning, out of nowhere, the government worked. The government actually agreed on something and passed a historic $2 trillion aid package, not just for corporations, but I think like 2/3 of the money for individuals. I don't know. You guys can correct me in the, feel free to mouth off in the comments below. But as a bleeding heart, snowflake, liberal, what else am I? What else have I been called? Communist. I'm not a communist, but socialist leaning individual. I have to say, I have gained respect for the system of the United States of America. I have gained respect for specific individuals. I thought Mitch McConnell was a good statesman, at least in one statement that I think was targeted towards those who would like to see smaller government rather than bigger government, that this is like a wartime investment in the country. And by the by, since we last spoke, I took a job with Job Corps, where I am the psychologist at a site helping out young people 16 to 24 who are low income. And that was a program created by the Kennedy administration that has a history ever since then, and that the president wanted to close down a large number of those sites because he felt they were redundant with, it's not important, but there was a sense of redundancy there. And Mitch McConnell apparently was one of the people who intervened, probably because of his constituency. So what I'm saying those political things for is to point out some of the things that I see as positive on a high level. If I went from the personal, babbling, free associating basically here, to the political and the national, global level, even people who I don't care for, whose politics are not my politics, I am gaining respect for in terms of their responses to things and seeing greater complexity. And I tend to think that to see greater complexity tends to promote peace, tends to promote harmony, tends to promote cooperation, to see myself in the other and to see the other in myself, and all that hippy dippy hogwash. Well, let's see, am I done? Good gracious, how long have I gone on? 12 minutes? That's a lot of me babbling at you. So my hope, my aspiration is to offer something every day, maybe something a little more coherent than this particular entry, initial entry, in which I am both catching up with my viewership and voicing a number of very mixed, almost chaotic set of thoughts and emotions, from, oh my God, we're all at risk. I'm at higher risk because I just turned 50 years old and I'm feeling my mortality. My father just passed away. My mother's very old and vulnerable, blah, 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 to, hey, vacation. I get to do what I want. I get to just be with my family and my kids and my do my hobbies and oh my God, what's going to happen? And oh, my friends in Manhattan, oh, and all around the world, the amount of suffering is tremendous and is going to increase. Let's take it to there. And I hope that this, excuse me, that's a morning cough. That's not, I wanted to call it H1N1, H1N1, swine flu, avian flu, coronavirus, what have you. It's not any of those, I assure you. And I'll see you tomorrow. And I hear my kids waking up, so this is a good time for me to stop.